What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Omar, and today we're going to be kicking off a brand new build series. So here we have a Lexus IS250C, also known as the Lexus IS250 convertible. This car is completely stock, no modifications, no crazy history, and honestly just a solid platform with lots of potential, and we're going to be doing a complete transformation on it. And I know some of you are thinking, why the IS250 convertible? And honestly, why not? It's a very rare platform. There's not a whole lot done to it, and really there's no video out there on how to bag this car and how to just work on it. So I figured this would be a good opportunity to make a build series on this car and show you guys the process. So guys, we're gonna do a quick walk around on the car. So as you can see, it does have a black paint, and like we said, the car is pretty much completely bone stock. The only thing we've really replaced is this little stubby antenna here and a plastic trim piece on the shifter and on the inside. But as you can see, it does have the white interior, and if you haven't noticed already, this is a coupe, so it does have rear seats, very limited in space. But like I said, this is a very unique platform. Not a whole lot of people build these. They usually stick with the four-door sedans, so I figured this would be a great opportunity to do a build series on it, and we're going to take you guys through the process. With that being said, let's get right to it. We're going to start off by installing air suspension on the car, and we're going to show you guys the process. So here is our setup. So we will be using an airlift 3Ps management system. Here we have all of our fittings, and then we do have a dual compressor with a 10-gallon tank. Here's our airlift remote, and here we have all of our wiring and all harnesses. And here's our steel braided lines. And for this setup, we're going to be using Godspeed mono air struts, and we're going to be using 1/4-inch airline as well. So without further ado, we're going to start by installing these air struts and removing the old ones off the car. Alright guys, so we got all the wheels off, all 4 wheels, and we're going to start by installing the rear struts. So if we make our way into the trunk, you're going to see the 3 bolts that hold the top hat, and we're just going to remove those 3 bolts, and then making our way back to the bottom here, it should just be that big bolt down there that's holding the strut together. So we're going to move that bolt and the 3 at the top and see if the strut comes up. So guys, we ended up having to remove this bolt here and the bolt to the lower ball joint there. So once you remove both of these, now we should be able to drop the control arm here and be able to get this strut up. So now we're going to go ahead and try that. Alright guys, so what we ended up having to do is remove the bolt that was at the top, and that there releases the lower part of the strut. So to take the top hat off, if you look over on the side there, it looks like there's actually some bolts right there and on the other side that are actually holding the top hat in place. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to remove the wheel liner and see if we can access those bolts, and then hopefully that drops the top hat. Alright guys, so top hat is out. Like I said, it was just mounted up here with those 2 holes right here. So once you remove those bolts, you're able to take the top hat out. Alright guys, so here we have a side-by-side of the stock suspension and then the air suspension. So as you can see, the air suspension is much shorter. So with that in itself, it's already going to sit much slower than the stock suspension is. So now that we have this out, we're going to go ahead and start throwing this guy in. And we're just going to do the exact same thing we did with the driver's side to the passenger side, and we'll show you guys the final process. Alright guys, so here we have a 1/8 fitting. So what we're going to do is attach a 1/8 to 1/4 fitting so we can fit our 1/4-inch steel braided airline. So we're going to get this wrapped in Teflon and go ahead and attach it, and then we're going to put our airline in, and then we'll go ahead and put the whole strut in. All right guys, so we installed the rear struts on both sides of the car. So as you can see, everything is bolted in. This system doesn't utilize this old bracket system that holds the OEM top hat. So we're actually just gonna remove these bolts since we'll no longer need them. So we did connect the steel braided airline before putting the strut in, just because it's a little easier to tighten it when it's off the car. And then we're gonna have it ran right behind the strut here, and it's probably gonna go into that grommet right there where we're connected to the actual airline. So everything's bolted in, everything looks good. On the top end, everything is tightened up. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the front now, and we're gonna show you guys the process of installing the front struts. All right, so now we're gonna adjust the front struts before we throw them in. All right guys, so rear is all done. So now we're gonna go ahead and get started on the front. So just kind of looking at it, it looks like it should be a little easier. If you come down here, you can see the bolt on the edge there where my finger is. We should just have to remove that bottom bolt of the strut, and then coming to the top of the engine bay, we're gonna have to remove some of these plastics. So I removed the 3 clips that are holding this plastic together, here, here, and here. And this should just kind of pop out. And then that should give us access. It looks like there's one more trim piece. Okay, cool. That should give us access to the 3 nuts that are holding the top strut. So that should be all we need to get the front strut removed. We're gonna remove those 4 bolts and then go from there. After some trial and error, we finally got the OEM strut out, and we realized the best way to do that is to remove the upper control arm so we can pull this out and pull the stock suspension out. Otherwise it just bumps into here and it just doesn't go out. So yeah, we removed the 2 bolts back here for the upper control arm, swung the suspension out, pulled it right out. So now we're gonna go ahead and install our other suspension, just like that. The front air struts are now in. As you can see, we have that in. We had to re-tighten the upper control arm and just the bottom strut. And we did have to put on the brake line brace as well. And we have our steel braided running through here, which will probably end up running somewhere through this wheel well. That's gonna go inside. And then making our way to the top. Got the top hat in. We do have to tighten these still. And it does come with the adjustable camber plates as well. So we will tweak that once the wheels are on and everything like that. So now that the air struts are all done, we're gonna get started on the interior. We're gonna start by just removing all the liners and everything for the rear, and then take out the rear seats and just start running all our airlines and all of our wiring. Here we are at the trunk. We're gonna start taking everything apart here and just kind of make our way up towards the car. So we're gonna take the carpets out, all the liners and everything. And first thing we're gonna try and do is actually run the lines for the rear into the trunk. This one should be relatively easy. I assume it's gonna come out somewhere through here under the carpets. And then once we get those done, we're gonna make our way to the interior. We'll remove the seats, we'll remove all the plastic trims, and slowly start running the wires up to the front wheel wells and the batteries as well, and the battery as well. So let's get started on the trunk, and we'll just make our way forward. So now we're going to get all of our wiring set up. So this could look a little overwhelming if it's your first time, but you know, you just do one wire at a time, and it'll kind of be a little self-explanatory. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually, this here is the main harness. So I'm going to pull this out. So essentially on this front here, we have this that goes onto the positive and negative terminal on the battery. And then here is the fuse to tap into the fuse. And then over here, we have the USB that connects to the remote. So that's pretty much the main wiring harness. And if you make our way back to the other end of it, here is the positive and negative for the compressor, for the main compressor. And then this is just ground. And then over here we have the main plug-in for the manifold system, which just plugs in just like that. So this is going to stay in the trunk, and we're going to run all this wire to the front of the car. So here, this cable is again the USB. This plugs into the USB, and then this plugs into the remote, so we can actually control the management. And then this cable here is going to be our secondary compressor harness. So again, pretty self-explanatory. This right here is going to be for ground. This is going to be positive and negative for the compressor. And then over here we have our positive and negative that's going to be ran up to the battery. So we're going to start running all of these wires, and yeah, we'll show you guys the process of that. We are in the interior. We're going to try to remove the seats and try to find a way to run all those wires somehow through the seat, maybe under the carpet. We'll show you what we find. So we finally got the interior taken apart. So what we did is we took out the bottom seat, which are just some clips. You just pull it up on each corner. Make sure you pull on the corners when you're removing it, not the middle. And then, so after that, there's going to be this seat here, and there's going to be some screws that are going to be holding these in place, 2 on each end. And you just remove the screws. So if you want to remove these seats completely, you have to actually take the top down, and there's going to be some clips back here that are going to be accessible that you can then remove, and that's going to remove the seat completely. But since we have the entire rear, since we have the entire trunk removed, the sensors and all the connectors and stuff that let the top go down won't let it open at the moment. So what we chose to do was rather just pry this open, and we removed a couple screws, or a couple nuts, sorry, look like this, that hold this in place, and this is just a little plastic piece between the behind the seat and the trunk. So now there's just a big hole in there. So what we're gonna do is run all the wires through that hole, and it's just gonna come through that end here. It's gonna come through here, and then essentially it's gonna go through the side and then right through those carpets here that we have taken apart. So we're gonna run all of those wires now, and it's gonna go, some of them are gonna go up to the battery, and then one of them is gonna go to the fuse box, and the other is gonna go just here on the dash so it can connect to the remote. So we have all the wires, the main harness, the primary and secondary compressor, and we also started to run the airlines. So we're running the airlines through the same way that we ran the wires. So if you come over here, here we have all the wiring that we need to go out to the battery, as well as the fuse. And then we also have an airline. It's hard to see, but it's right over here that's running through the same hole that this was running through. If you come around here, I might be able to explain it over a little better. So here's the airline that we're trying to run through the driver door, or through the driver's side passenger. So this airline pretty much goes up into one of these holes here, which comes out into a hole right over here. And from there, it's going right into that grommet right there. You can see the grommet right there. We just crammed a little hole, squeezed a little hole, and then fed it through. And now here we have our airline that we're running. We're just going to be running it through the carpet, under these trim pieces, under the seat, and it's going to go back out to the trunk. We have ran 3 out of the 4 airlines. So here is the rear right, here is the front right. We're about to feed in the front left, and then all we have left is the rear left as well. So this part is pretty straightforward. Really just finding ways to run the lines and where to hide them through. But yeah, just kind of figuring it out as we go. But we'll keep you guys posted with where we run things and all that good stuff. All right, guys. So now we're gonna actually do the wiring. So first thing we're gonna do is connect the compressors. So it's just a positive and a negative, and then on the compressor side, again, just positive and negative. So I'm just exposing the wires, and then I'm gonna combine them. We just wired our positive and negative wires for the compressor. Now we're just gonna do the same thing with the other compressor. All right guys, so now we're just gonna do the wiring that goes up to the battery. So for these, we just need to cut a little bit of wire. Like that. And then pretty much just put it into these guys here. And then we just go ahead and melt it. Just like that. And then, so the ground, we're gonna use the strut, top hat. And then obviously the red one is just gonna go into the positive. So yeah, we're gonna do that with both of these. And then the fuse is actually gonna go back inside the car into the fuse box that's under the dash. So we'll show you guys where that is afterwards. All right guys, so everything should be done. Right now I'm just gonna plug in the controller. So we're gonna plug that in. We're gonna fire up the car and see if it works. All right, now we really just gotta look and see if there's any leaks, you know, anything that out of the ordinary. It's hard to tell right now with the car on, but once the tank builds up enough air so where it's full and then the compressors stop, then we're gonna go around all the wheels, look for any leaks, hear for anything, see if the PSI is dropping, and yeah, just go from there and see if we need to make any adjustments. So once the tank is full, we'll keep you guys posted and we'll do a quick walk around. All right guys, so we just checked all the bags and looks like we do have 2 leaks and it's gonna be on both fronts. So we will be addressing those tomorrow, but for now, we're gonna go ahead and air out the car for the first time. That concludes the video of bagging the IS250C Project car. Let me go ahead and air it out for you guys so you guys can see what it looks like.